Hi everybody, hope everyone's doing okay out there. It's a rainy day here in Dayton, Ohio, so not the sunshine that we had yesterday, but I hope you're doing okay. I am on today to talk a little bit about kind of a tough topic, but one that I think is really important to create some awareness about and to give a little bit of information about, especially at this time where everybody's kind of going through a little bit more stress than normal, I think, especially if you're a caregiver and there's been some changes to your routines and to your life caring for your loved one. So I want to talk today about depression in caregivers and a little bit about people, about depression and people living with dementia. I just want to make a couple notes on that too. So hi Elaine, hi to everybody that's watching. So I just wanted to talk a little bit, first start by talking, and if you have questions, please feel free to post, and I will try to answer those as best as I can. So the first thing that I want to touch on is just being able to identify what it looks like to have depression and what are some of the signs and symptoms. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about ways to cope and how to get help. So, hi. I love it when people make comments, so if you're out there, say hi. So the first thing I want to talk about, like I said, is some of the signs and symptoms. So these are going to be obviously the kind of signs and symptoms you're going to see with anybody who's experiencing some depression. So one of them is kind of getting really easily frustrated, losing your patience, really overwhelming feelings of guilt, and that can be really common in caregivers. Thinking about, am I doing this all right? Am I handling all this okay? Sleep problems is another common one. So if you are experiencing sleep disturbances, maybe you're waking up a lot at night, you're not able to sleep as much, or maybe you're sleeping even more often. So those kind of things to look out for. Loss of energy, so feeling like you're fatigued, you have less energy. Of course, that's going to be really common in caregiving anyway, because you're going to have those extra things that you have to do to take care of your loved one. Losing interest in things that you used to enjoy, that's another common sign. Lack of ability to concentrate. So if you're still working, for example, you find that you're not able to concentrate on tasks as easily. Hi, Karen. Saying hi to everyone. And then changes in appetite. That's a really big one. And you want to make sure that you kind of pay attention. Am I feeling hungry? Am I eating enough? And that type of thing. And then it can also result in some other physical symptoms, digestive system problems, headaches, things like that. So, I think we talk about mental health and we talk about physical health a lot of times separately, but your brain is part of your body, and that's one of the things that we really emphasize here at the Alzheimer's Association. So it's part of your whole system. So you're going to see, physical symptoms as well that you want to pay attention to. So like I said, these are a lot of things that caregivers are going to face. So, but you're going to want to pay attention to, are these symptoms things that I'm feeling on a regular basis? Is this really impacting my ability to live my life and go about my day-to-day life? And that's what you're really going to want to pay attention to. So if you see these kind of signs and symptoms in yourself, what do you do? And my advice is don't wait. So get help for these symptoms as soon as you can, because the sooner that you're going to get them, going to get help, then the easier it's going to be to cope, and the less that you're going to have to suffer through this. And the treatment, just like in Alzheimer's or dementia, when you get that diagnosis or when you get that that word from your doctor, then you can sort of create a path to go forward. So get support. That is the number one thing. Don't wait, because it can really actually impact your physical health a lot too. If you're really holding that kind of those kind of symptoms inside, you're not dealing with those, it can come out in a lot of ways. Stress on the body can come out in a lot of physical ways as well. So see your doctor. That's the first piece of advice. Just call your primary care physician, that type of thing. So you can start there, and hopefully they can help you, give you an assessment, kind of go through some things with you, and then talk about what treatments might be available. So that's what I want to talk about a little bit next. So treatment with something like depression or anxiety can mean a lot of different things. So a lot of times there might be medications that that people can try, and maybe they work well for some people and not as well for others, but you have to give it some time. So that's something that if you explore that with your doctor, know that it's something that can take time to help. So you'll want to put some other things in place as well, and that can involve counseling or other types of supportive treatment. So maybe your doctor might refer you to a counselor, a therapist, to kind of talk through some of those issues. And that's something that I want to talk a little bit about, because I think sometimes people, maybe they've tried to go to see a counselor or someone, a professional before, to get help, and maybe it didn't really work well. They didn't really feel like it was a good fit for them. But what I want to say about that is that it's kind of like anything, selecting anything, is that you don't want to just say, oh, I went to this one person, they didn't help me, I tried that, it just didn't work. You want to really try several people if the first person that you seek help from you don't feel like is a good fit for you. So you don't have to just say, you don't have to give up after that kind of first try. It takes a little bit of time to get used to, and it's something where you're going to want to establish a good relationship with a provider, and you want to make sure that that person is a really good fit and kind of understands what you're going through. There are some counselors and therapists out there that really specialize in working with caregivers, and they understand the stresses that caregivers are facing. So they'll be a little bit better versed in talking about some of those issues and how you might feel. Caregivers go through a lot of different emotions, so it can be common to experience depression. You have those feelings of guilt, like I talked about. You're going to have those moments of grief where you're really grieving about how things have changed with your loved one and with your own personal life, how being a caregiver has really changed your life in a huge way. You're going to go through moments of sadness. You're going to feel isolated. Those are all normal things, but you don't have to suffer alone. You don't have to go through those things alone. You can really reach out, and there are people out there that really kind of specialize in that, and that's one of the things that you can do. So if you're experiencing this, you can give us a call. Call our helpline or call our local number, and I'll give you those at the end, and we can help you, give you some referrals and some places to start. So that's one thing. And then, so those are kind of the different treatments for depression. Is kind of medication might work for you, might not. Some people would prefer to try maybe counseling or therapy first, or a combination of the two things. So you really have to kind of try and see what's right for you in your situation. But I don't want you to ignore it. So if you're feeling these things, it's really important to reach out, because like I said, a lot of times what happens with caregivers is they're so focused on caring for their loved one, right? And we should be, but we also need to be taking care of ourselves, because it's really hard to care for somebody that you love if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not around to take care of them. So it's really important to kind of, when you notice these things in yourself, to really get some help as soon as you can, and whatever that might look like for you. But I would say please reach out to your primary care, your family doctor, and make an appointment to talk with them about it. So, but then I want to talk about what are some of the other ways that you can cope while you're going through tough time. So finding some ways to relieve stress. And I think sometimes this is easier said than done. You kind of see those lists and it's like, get out and exercise, take a walk, see friends, go do things you love. And I think sometimes that sounds just so overwhelming for people who already have so much going on in their lives, especially now when we have our routines kind of thrown for a loop. So I think that you have to really think small. So think about what you can do in 5 minutes. What can you do to really help yourself relieve stress? And that might just be on a day like yesterday when it was nice and sunny. Can you just sit outside for 5 minutes and breathe? Take a few minutes to get a breath. read for a few minutes. Just do something for a few minutes. Start with 5 minutes of something. You don't have to try to fit in a new exercise routine or go outside and, you know, do something that's really just so involved. Start small and then work your way up. Try to find ways that really help you. Think about what you really like to do and try to do that to relieve some stress. And then getting help in some other ways can really, so we talked about counseling, but I want to talk a little bit about support. So the Alzheimer's Association, if you are familiar with what we do, one of the services that we provide are caregiver support groups. And these are really great. They're not going to replace your counseling with an individual therapist or something like that, but they can really give you support. So you can really talk to other people who are going through the same thing. So I talked a little bit about caregiver support groups in our one of our previous Facebook Live event, so you can go back and watch that. You can go to our website, alz.org/Dayton, and you can see a list of our support groups and find out a little bit more about what they are. But they're basically places where people come together and really talk about what they're going through as caregivers. People talk about what's going on with them. And then people that are in that same boat can give you suggestions and can just be a listening ear for you. So that's a resource as well. Some other things to do, or one other thing to try is try to get some help for in your caregiving. So some kind of respite services. So can you get someone to come into the home even for a couple of hours a week? Start small. Again, I always say start small. You don't have to completely change your routine. You don't have to get someone coming in 5 days a week. Big changes are going to be hard for people with dementia and for caregivers too. So start small. So I think that's one thing to try. Try to get some help coming in the home. Some of the respite services that we would normally talk about, like maybe an adult daycare center that a loved one could go to and be active with other people and be engaged. Those kinds of things aren't open right now, so it's a little bit tougher, but there are some in-home services that can help. Reach out to family and friends for help. And I know a lot of, you know, when you see tips about what to do, a lot of times for caregivers it says, you know, ask for help from family and friends. And we all hear that and we think, yes, you know, I really should. And a lot of us have, you know, family members and friends who are saying, hey, do you need anything? But, you know, when they're saying that to you, it might be hard for you to think of something right on the spot. Oh, this is what you can do for me. But I encourage you, and this is some advice that someone gave me at one point, is that, you know, people are going to ask you when they find out what you're going through, how can I help? What you need to do is you really need to think of what are some of the things people can help me with. There's going to be some things that nobody can help you with. You're just going to have to do yourself in the care of your loved one and for yourself. But there are some things that people can help with. Bringing meals, sitting with your loved one for a few hours, maybe some things around the house that you need help with. What are some of those things? If you're still working, you know, what are some of the things that you're doing that maybe a colleague could help with? So make a list of some of those things that people could help you with. And that way when someone says, hey, is there anything I can do to help you? You know, hey, these are some things you could really do to help me. Instead of being kind of put on the spot and thinking, oh, I don't know, I just have to do everything myself. So a lot of times we think that, but if we have some really specific ways that we can ask for help, that can really take a lot of burden off of the caregiver. So those are some of the suggestions that I have. But one of the things that I did want to mention too, that depression, like it's very common, like I said, it's very common in caregivers because of all of the things that you're going through, a new situation. You know, depression can really be triggered by big life changes. So when you have a big life change, like a new diagnosis, or maybe your loved one goes into a different type of living situation, maybe they're now in an assisted living facility or a long-term care facility, or maybe there's been some kind of change in your life, that can really trigger an episode of depression. So that's why I wanted to talk about this, because this whole situation that we're going through now, it can be a trigger for people to experience those symptoms. So just like it is for the caregiver, it also can be for the person with dementia. And unfortunately, depression is really common in people with dementia as well, especially in the early stage of dementia, where the person still has the cognitive ability to understand, for the most part, what is happening to them. There might be some denial, but they understand that there is a change that's happening within them, and they might have some grief too about what they're experiencing and what is to come in their life. So that can really lead to some depression. Now, the hard thing about that in people with Alzheimer's or dementia is that those kind of symptoms are very similar, like what I was talking about with getting frustrated, sleep problems, lack of energy, lack of concentration, lack of appetite. Those are some of the very same symptoms that you're going to see in Alzheimer's or dementia. So it's very hard sometimes to really pinpoint. So you have to really look for that overwhelming kind of sense of sadness over an extended period of time, and that could be something that you want to talk to the doctor about. And a lot of times physicians, they know how to sort of look for those kind of differences, and hey, is this person with dementia experiencing depression? So you want to have that same awareness about what are the kind of symptoms. And I wanted to, there's a link, if you go on the Alzheimer's Association website, just alz.org, and you click on Alzheimer's and dementia, there's a lot of information about the symptoms that you might see in someone with dementia, but you really want to look for the information about Alzheimer's, people living with Alzheimer's and depression, and we'll post the link here so you can just directly go to it. But that way you can see what are some of those symptoms. And so it looks like we just posted the link, so thank you. So you can really see those symptoms, and then you can really talk with your physician about those, or your loved one's physician. Like I said, it can be really common in the early, even sometimes the middle stages of dementia to experience that, and you want to make sure that you can get help for that as well. And again, some of those same symptoms can look like the symptoms of dementia. So that's why it's important to get that checked out, so that you make sure that the person is getting the kind of care that they need for their symptoms. But that is true too for caregivers. One of the reasons that you want to go see your doctor is that they're going to rule out other things. Just like with a person with Alzheimer's or dementia, when you see those symptoms, one of the first things the doctor is going to do is say, hey, these are some of the symptoms of some other illnesses or some other conditions, and we're going to try to rule out some things, some different kind of disorders that could be more easily treatable with medication or something like that. So I think it's important to kind of get that information. So we're going to post a couple links here. Get the information, read through it, and make sure you're aware of what it looks like in someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, what it looks like in a caregiver, and that way you can really reach out as soon as you recognize some of those signs or symptoms. It's really important to get those checked out. A lot of times caregivers, they really neglect their own physical and mental health because they're so busy caring for a loved one, and that can lead to problems down the road. So we really, really urge you to get support if you need it, and we are here for you, and that's what I want to say. The last thing I want to say is that we're really here to support you through your whole journey as a caregiver and to help you support your loved one. And one of the things that we have is our 24/7 helpline, literally 24/7, 365 days of the year. So you can reach out to us anytime at that number. It's 800-272-3900, and all the time staffed by a counselor or social worker who can assist with some of those questions that you might have, or if you just want to talk through some of the things that you're experiencing. We also have social workers here at our local chapter that are willing to help, and you can go ahead and give us a call on that local number as well. So that is 937-291-3332. So if you want to call during business hours and speak to one of us, feel free to call that number as well. So both of those numbers are available for you. at any time. And if we can we will post, if we haven't already, our link to the caregiver support groups so that you can check some of those out. And I want to say too about caregiver support groups, every caregiver support group is different. There's going to be different people that are facilitating them, different people that are in them. They're all going to be at different places in their journey in caring for someone with dementia. So if you try a caregiver support group and you think, I don't know if that was right for me, I encourage you to try another one. Try another one and see if maybe it's a better fit. So sometimes I think just giving something another chance can really help too. So, and if not, reach out to us anytime and we can help you with some resources. I talked about, getting help in the home and things like that. What are some of the other things you can put in place to make to reduce your stress as a caregiver? We can help you put a plan in place. And that's really what our social workers do. So give us a call on that number anytime, day or night. So I don't see any questions, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions right now. Otherwise, we are posting our 24/7 helpline number again. So please feel free to give us a call anytime, like I said, and we will help you. We are going to be doing Caregiver Corner. And we're going to be doing it every Wednesday and every Friday now at noon. So we're going to have a topic like this about caregiving. Some of them are going to be even more practical, day-to-day care of your loved one, safety issues, those types of things. So we are going to be doing those every Wednesday and Friday. I'm on my phone right now, so I have a question that popped up, so I'm like scrolling through. I have a question about from Elaine. So a lot of times people are in denial and are so tired and exhausted from caregiving, and are also caregiving in conjunction with another person, another family member. So let me read this question here. What advice would you give to someone who is doing the right things for a person fighting the battle of dementia versus the person who's doing all of the wrong things for the same person? Oh my gosh, this is a great topic for another Facebook Live. That's a great question. But like I was saying, just kind of reading through your situation, a lot of times that you are caregiving, you're not just the sole caregiver for someone with dementia. A lot of times it's maybe a parent, and maybe it's your mom, and your dad is the primary caregiver, but you're also assisting with the care of your loved one. And there's a little bit of conflict there. Maybe your family member is kind of in denial about what's happening with your loved one. You're trying to put all these things in place to help, but things aren't really working out. One of the things that can really help in that situation is sitting down and having kind of a family, a meeting among the caregivers. And that's one of the things that we do a lot, is when we do our care consultations and we meet with families, we kind of bring them together. And as a neutral party, we don't have any kind of stake in the family and what happens. So we can listen as a neutral party to, oh, hey, what do you think is going on and how are things going? And what does the other caregiver or family member think is going on? And how can we work together to really benefit the person with dementia? So I always recommend some kind of mediation sort of thing. So there actually are organizations in the community that can help do mediation. There's also just the ability to meet with us and kind of bring the family together and then establish the common goal and provide a little bit of education and support. So that's one thing. But the other piece of advice that I have is that it's really hard to convince someone else of your position or what you think is right. So what I recommend for caregivers sometimes is, yes, you can feel defeated because, and I actually, experienced this, personally as a caregiver in the past. this is what I think should happen. This is what I know. I've learned all of these things. For heaven's sake, I worked at the Alzheimer's Association. Hey, this is what we should be doing. But then other people are involved, and you can't force them to, or you can't make them see something the way that you do all the time. So you just have to remind yourself that you are doing the best that you can do, and that you can't have complete control over a situation. So think about, what are the things that you can impact? What are the ways that you can communicate with that person? Because I think a lot of times it's just hard to get somebody to convince somebody and that this is the right thing, or what you should be doing. So it can put you in that constant struggle of, hey, I know that this is what we need to do. We need to put my loved one in, we need to put, dad or mom or whoever in a long-term care facility. And, other family members might think, no, absolutely, I'll never do that. This isn't really what's going on. That type of thing. So you really have to make peace with the fact, I think, that you can't control everything. You can't control those loved ones, and if they're ever going to come around and get help, or kind of believe that this is a situation, because you're talking a lot about denial in your question. So I think that, I have had a similar experience where I've been in the position where, someone just did, this isn't what's going on. It's not Alzheimer's disease. That's not what it is. I don't think the loved one should be in a nursing home. But at some point you have to give up the fight of trying to convince that person of your side of the situation, and say to yourself, what can I do? So in that type of situation, really reach out, because everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different. So I just recommend reaching out to us and to think, how can I get some support through this? How can I have someone that I can talk to through this? Because it's going to be tough when you have family members that are at odds, and that happens quite a bit. So, I think that you also have to, tell yourself too, you're doing the best that you can. Again, you can't control other people and what they do. So I just think, what an amazing job, and I'm seeing your story, Elaine, and thinking you did the best job that you could do. You always had your dad's best wishes at heart, and you made the decisions based on that. And that's all you can do. That's all you can do. You can reach out, and you can try to do some a family meeting, have us sit down with you, or another organization, try to work through some things, and establish a common goal, and say, hey, even if you don't believe this is what this is, here are some of the things mom and dad are going through. How can we, put some things in place to help them? So I think you really have to reach out for help, because if you are going through that kind of struggle where you're really conflicted as a family, one of the things I think is just reaching out and getting some support for yourself, because it's going to be really hard for you to live with what can sometimes be a long battle, trying to fight against what's happening, and trying to convince somebody to come over and be in the same place that you are. It's almost impossible sometimes to do that. So I think just remember that you are doing the best you can. Make decisions that you make decisions based on the what's the best thing for you, what's the best thing for your loved one, and then just try every day to approach it as, I'm doing the best I can, I'm doing the best I can. You're not going to be able to do everything. So that's where I say, reach out for help, like you did, Elaine, in your story. Reach out for help, and get support. Get support, so someone can be there listening with you. And I'm sure, like, if you go to a support group, you're going to hear so many other people who are going through just that thing. It's so common. So you did the best you could, and that's what you have to keep telling yourself. So with that, I do encourage, again, we're going to have Caregiver Corner every Wednesday, every Friday, and that's where we really talk about topics that are really helpful for caregivers of people with dementia, and then, you know, some topics about living with dementia. Maybe we'll do one, Elaine, on family dynamics and how to kind of work through some of those challenges, because that's a whole other topic that can really be addressed. So please join us Wednesday, Friday, noon. We'll be here answering questions and hopefully helping by giving you some information that you can use in your day-to-day life caregiving. So if you have any suggestions about topics for future Caregiver Corner, you can pop those in the comments, and we will do a Facebook Live on that topic, because if you're asking questions about it or you're in need of it, I'm sure there are many other caregivers around the community that are in the same boat as you. Always remember that you are not alone. So again, we posted those links to the information on depression and caregiving and in people with dementia, and we also posted the link to our caregiver support groups and the phone number for our helpline. So with that, I will say have a great afternoon. I'm looking out my window right now. Hopefully it stops raining, but it's actually kind of nice hearing the rain coming in. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we're here anytime you need us. So thanks, everybody. Bye.